All right, now these stories are a little local color, kind of what life was like growing up when I was a kid. So this story takes place at the Greenbrook Country Club. You got to be 14 years old to get your working papers. So I'm 14, I guess. I'm 14 years old. I'm up there, and when you were a new caddy, you had to wait, to get out. You didn't get out right away. The older caddies got out first. Now, when I say older caddies, the caddies range from 14 years old to probably 40. Okay, I mean there were a lot of guys that's what they did. They caddied, or they caddied when they weren't working, or they weren't working steady, they work construction or something like that. So there were always a lot of guys hanging around up there that were in their 20s, 30s, So anyway, we're sitting there, and the caddies used to sit under these trees, maybe 3 or 4 little pine trees. They had a nice little canopy, and they had benches out there, and they had white stones, small white stones all over the ground. So I'm come up one day, and I'm sitting there, I'm waiting, and there's this guy, and he's got a muscle shirt on, he's got it twisted up like this, he's got some muscles on him, and he's about 15 years old maybe, I didn't know him. He went to Snake Valley or something, I don't know. Anyway, he has a handful of these rocks, and he keeps picking them up and he's throwing them at kids. And he's just being a wise guy, throwing the rocks, So every time he hits a kid, he goes, "Hey, you want to go down the pond? You want to go down the pond?" Now, down the pond, I'll tell you, I'll give you the full story later, but the pond was basically where you went to settle a fight, because you couldn't have a fight up there at the caddy shack. So you went down to this pond, and the pond was just at the edge of the golf course. It was probably on golf course property, I guess, but it was right at the edge of golf course property. Anyway, the thing is, when you went for a fight, okay, the good news, bad news, right? The big guys, the 20-year-olds, always ran the fight. They were quick to get down there. They loved to fight. So they ran the fight, and there was no wrestling, okay, only boxing. And the loser got thrown in the pond, and there was a pond down there. The pond wasn't very big. Maybe you could pay, you could park 3 or 4 cars on the size of that pond. The pond was about 2 or 3 feet deep, not very deep. It was full of frogs and a lot of green slime all over it. So it was not, you were done, your day was over when you got thrown in a pond. Anyway, so the guy's throwing these stones at people. And he keeps telling them, "You want to go down?" No. And everybody, "Come on, lay off, Joe," whatever his name was, "Hey, come on, cut it out, cut it out." So I'm sitting there, and I'm getting madder and madder and madder. And I had a bad temper when I was a kid. I did have a bad temper. That's how I got in a lot of fights. So I'm really boiling. I'm shaking. So he throws one of the stones. It hits a kid, bounces off the kid, hits the bench, bounces off, hits my shoe. I get up, down the pond right now. And I just walk. I don't give him a chance to say anything. To talk his way out of it, try to talk me out of it, try to scare me out. I just take off for the pond, followed by a whole bunch of people. So we get down the pond, finally get down the pond, and again, the older guys read the rules, no wrestling, whatever, okay. And the loser gets thrown in the pond, that's it. So we start out, and I'm like this, and this kid, maybe he was a wrestler, maybe he was strong at wrestling, I don't know, he had muscles, but he obviously didn't know how to fight, box at all. So anyway, I start out, bang, and I'll tell you this, in all the fights I ever had, I don't think I ever threw a body punch. Never. Just right to the face. Boom. So I hit him about 4 times, and the 3rd and 4th time, his lips bleeding, his nose is bleeding, and finally he wipes his hand on his nose and he sees all the blood, and he goes like ballistic. He goes crazy. He just starts swinging like crazy. So I just ducked down, like this. Say, hey, what the heck, let him swing. I can't, and hitting my body, ain't gonna hurt anything. So he's swinging. Well, one of his swings comes around just like wild. And apparently it hit my head, nice hard head, and it hit it on his wrist. And somewhere up on his wrist. And anyway, whatever happened, it really hurt him. And he stops and he goes all over, he's all bent over. And a couple of the guys look at him and his hand, it's swollen up. His wrist is all swollen up. His hand, he can't even make a fist. His palm is all swollen up. And it's like he must have busted a blood vessel or something in there, it just swelled up like that, that fast. But obviously, he's not going to continue to fight anymore. Now, I didn't have any concern about throwing him in the pond. That wasn't what my intention was. My intention was just to hit him. That's what my intention was. And I already done that. So I'm just standing there. The other guys go, are you going to continue to fight? The kid says, I can't. They go, okay. They just grab him, walk him over, and throw him in the pond. Now, you got to think about this kid. To get to the golf course, okay, even if you took a bus, he was from West Patterson, that's about 4 miles. So even if he took a bus, the bus would only drop you off a mile from the golf course. You had to walk a mile after that. So however he got to the golf course, I don't know. But he had to get back 4 miles full of muck, green muck, all over him, and so anyway, we just leave. We go back to caddying, he has to go home. So I'm sitting there the next day. I go, I got to deal with this joker the next day, and figuring, I don't know, it's always going to be awkward anyway. I knew it was going to be awkward. But I never saw him again. He never came to the golf course again. I'm sure he went to Passaic Valley, and the other guys know him, but I didn't know him at all. I never went to Passaic Valley, so I never ran into the kid again. But anyway, it was one of a few memorable ones anyway. Anyway, it just gives you a sense of, but things were like that. People settled things, and it was no big deal. It wasn't like his parents were going to come down to my parents' house or something like that. No, it was over. It was done, It was a fight. And we had a number of them. All right, so that's another little episode in the life of John Duffy. Take care.